How's it going, everyone? I want to talk a little bit more about the potential $80 price hike that is coming up. Obviously, we already know that games like Mario Kart World and a lot of the Microsoft published titles will be going to $80. We also know that Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the upgraded release on Nintendo Switch 2, will be $80, and given that Nintendo was the first domino to fall, I talked about it when I talked about them raising the price point to $80. It doesn't really matter to me in a vacuum about Nintendo specifically raising the price of their games. Everybody's spinning it into a console war shenanigan type thing because it's Nintendo and Microsoft, and oh, PlayStation hasn't done it yet. I'm not really, I don't care about that because ultimately, I know that all of these publishers study each other. They are going to see market reactions, and if one publisher ups the price to $80 and got away with it, other publishers are going to follow in suit. That's just how the industry works. Just because one publisher raised the price of their games, I think it was Activision back in 2020 was the first one to up it to $70, it was obvious that all of the other publishers were gonna follow suit. Everybody should remove the console war element out of it just because it's Microsoft and Nintendo for now, and think about more so at the level of the consequences from the gaming world. And that's what I always talked about when talking about $80 price points, is that this is going to be something that is very relevant and a lot of other publishers are going to follow suit. However, I think we are getting to the point, and maybe I'll end up being wrong on this, where we are at a price threshold now that you have to be very selective of what games you're going with an $80 price tag. And that was already evident with the $70 price point. However, it is going to be even more pronounced at $80, and I think at $80 we're just getting to a point of it being ridiculous. Look, we all know that there are games out there that are gonna be able to get away with an $80 price point. The top level, absolutely elite games, yes, they can get away with $80. A Grand Theft Auto 6, I think at $80, people will still end up buying it. I will say though, and I know I didn't talk about the delay, it's just because you guys don't need me to do a video talking about the delay of Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, y'all already know about it, y'all have your feelings about it, whatever. But Grand Theft Auto 6, in my opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, I still think that game is going to be an absolute juggernaut. I think it's going to be absolutely massive. I do think you are getting into this slippery slope where now the game is the first Rockstar game in 8 years. It's 13 years removed from GTA 5. I do think you're getting into the territory of unreal expectations, and there's going to be nothing they can do to live up to those expectations. And even at $80, I do wonder, GTA 6 is going to sell millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of copies. That's not going to be a shocking statement, but this idea that it's going to be the second coming of video games, that I think some people, and most of my audience aren't in that camp, but I think some people, especially at a more casual level where they're just casually scrolling social media and they hear people talk about it nonstop, by the time we get to the release of that game, it is going to be something where people view it as the second coming of gaming, and they'll spend $80 on it. I wonder if they're setting themselves up for a little bit of a disappointment. And who knows about $80, you know, there have been the talks of GTA 6 being $100. Okay, but the GTA 6's, Mario Kart World, some Microsoft published titles, I wouldn't even go with all of them, can get away with an $80 price point. However, we saw it with $70 games when we had games like the Callisto Protocol, Wild Hearts, Immortals of Aveum. These games coming out for $70, just wrap it up at that point, it's over. You are essentially getting into a death march at that point if you're talking about a $70 Immortals of Aveum, an $80 game at the level of Immortals of Aveum, and I would even question, you know, upcoming games. And I look at something like a Ninja Gaiden 4, I feel like that is one of those games that a $70 versus $80 price tag is going to make a very big difference. How many people are going to rush out to spend $80 on Ninja Gaiden 4? And I bring that up because it's coming out fall of this year, and it's a Microsoft first-party title, or they define it as first-party. It's a Microsoft-published game, you get the idea. It'll be available on all platforms, but I am so excited for Ninja Gaiden 4, so happy that Ninja Gaiden is back. That is the one game for fans of the franchise and those that have played the games in the past. Will you buy a Ninja Gaiden 4 day one at $80? Ask yourself that. You're talking about, and I hate quantifying games just based on hours of content they have, because I don't think that's the only metric, but it is an important metric for a lot of people. Would you spend $80 on a Ninja Gaiden 4 if it's 12 hours long, 14 hours long, maybe a little bit of replayability? regardless, I think Ninja Gaiden 4 is one of those games where an $80 price tag will be damaging to it. At the end of the day, it looks like Microsoft had a big involvement with the cost and development of that game, and it'll be on Game Pass, so its sales are already going to be affected by it being on Game Pass, and you can play it that way. But for those that are playing it on PlayStation 5, $80 for Ninja Gaiden 4, I question how many people are going to rush out and run to spend $80 on a Ninja Gaiden 4. Even upcoming Microsoft IPs that I'm incredibly excited for, a Clockwork Revolution, that game looks really cool, but a new IP at $80 is going to be a tough sell. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is at such a high level that I think if people spent $80 on it and then they played through the game, by the end of the game, they'd be like, you know what, that game was probably worth $80. However, a big reason for that game's success, I do believe, is the fact that it was a budget title. It is a $50 game, and you are seeing more $50 games come out and be received really well. Expedition 33 is $50. There's Wushang Fallen Feathers that's coming out in July. That'll be $50, and that's one of the more anticipated games as well. I would argue there is this issue of these games are just too big for their own good, and you know, I've talked about this 5-year development cycle, 7-year development cycle, them releasing games at $70, $80, and honestly, are the games better? I ask this over and over again. At a level you can say that, hey, the visuals are nicer to look at, but really assess, are the games better now than they were in the late 2000s and early 2010s? There's a lot more money being invested into game development, but would people play these games if they were a little bit scaled back? I would say this, that I look at games that came out in the late 2000s and 2010s, especially from a developer like Naughty Dog. They were churning out the Uncharted trilogy and Last of Us Part 1 in the span of 5 years or 5.5 years, and now it's been 7 years and you don't get a game from Naughty Dog, and Intergalactic's gonna come out and it's gonna be $80. I think Intergalactic is cooked if it's at $80. It's a new IP. Naughty Dog isn't received at the level they were a decade ago. That's just the reality. That is fan perception of Naughty Dog right now. Yes, do they have a lot of fans that love them? Absolutely, but let's just say Intergalactic came out at $80, I think they're cooked. Obviously, it's still gonna sell some copies. I'm not saying it won't, but I really do feel like we're getting to that price threshold, and $70 was it for a lot of people. $80, I just think, you know, close up shop, and there's gonna be the select few games that are gonna be able to get away with it. Mario Kart World as a launch title for the Switch 2, whatever. You know, Microsoft first-party games, I would question how many of them people are gonna look at and be like, is it worth $80? If Gears of War E-Day, even if it came out on PlayStation 5, but it's $80. Are people gonna be that excited to check it out? Maybe initially for the novelty of Gears on PlayStation, but long term, I don't think that $80 price tag is gonna be sustainable to sell a lot of copies day one. And there is the biggest element of them all. Games are coming out at $80. It's not even as much about these games in a vacuum being good, because a lot of these games are pretty good. The reality is, there are so many options, it is ridiculous. There are so many games coming out. There are so many games that you can pick up on the cheap. There are games that people love to go back and play, and generally speaking, a lot of people usually have 1 to 2 live service games that are in their rotation, but the reality is, it's 1 to 2 live service games for all the other publishers that are chasing that gravy train. No, people usually have, like for the most part, my friend group, they have like a Marvel Rivals in their games that they're playing at all times, and they have a game like that at all times. But it's only one game, but that game is syncing up and soaking up a significant amount of their hours invested into gaming in totality, that they don't need every single game coming out to pick up and play. And I think they're ultimately gonna realize that, hey, this game is $80. Let me just go play that game that came out a little while ago. Maybe it's on sale, maybe it's not. It's not $80, and then, you know, I'll play that for a little while. I'll go back to Marvel Rivals, and then the $80 game comes out. People move on, and that's the thing about gaming these days, is you need to capture that initial wave of momentum and capitalize it. That's what happened with Expedition 33. The game came out, look, there were people like me that were excited about it and following it, but it wasn't at the level that it is now. But they captured that interest in day one, and then it snowballed and snowballed and snowballed, and then it exploded, and that now a lot of people are playing it. Well, if people are just gated out of even trying the game, or they are less inclined to play the game just based on the price point, well, that's an issue for building that momentum as well. And I do think there's gonna be a little bit more gravity put towards these games that are being priced at a, you know, a more acceptable, I would say, price point where people are more inclined to pick it up. And Expedition 33, I look at a Fallen Feathers, and we'll see how the holiday shapes up as far as the games coming out this fall. Now that GTA has been delayed till May, maybe we'll get a lot more release dates, but I'm really curious, you know, is Activision gonna go the $80 price route, given that those are Microsoft titles, you know, the new Call of Duty at 80 bucks? I really wonder, at what point do people look at COD and they're just like $80 for Call of Duty? I guess it has its established audience, and you know, COD's massive, Mario Kart is massive, GTA is massive, but those other games, those secondary level IPs, not your top level IPs, the secondary and the tertiary IPs, and new IPs as well. New IPs at an $80 price point, I think you're cooking yourself right out the gate. You know, there are times where they can work. Stellar Blade was incredibly successful, and that came out at $70, but I think you are stacking the deck against yourself. But we'll see how it all turns out. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Sound off there. And again, look at a game like Ninja Gaiden 4, because that's the one I look at. It's a Microsoft published game, so we know that a lot of those games are going to go up to $80. Would you spend $80 on Ninja Gaiden 4? It's not crapping on Ninja Gaiden 4. It's because I feel like that's a very relevant example to use based on the fact that we know Microsoft is upping their price point, and that's a game that is of a secondary or tertiary level IP. Not a GTA, not a Mario Kart, still a game that a lot of us love, but is it $80 for you guys? That's what I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.